Hey everyone, and welcome to Tech Down Over. I'm Briggs and I am joined today by Harold Muliati. Jeff Blanchard couldn't make it today. He wasn't actually feeling all that well, so he'll probably be on next week. We have great guests today. Here we go. You guys wouldn't believe how long it took to film that intro. It was horrible. But anyway.
And on top of it, getting Jeff and Rick in the same place.
That was even tougher. Yeah, it's only 8,000 miles apart or whatever. But
you have some good surfing skills.
Yep. And if you recognize the people on with us, this is our second visit. We've got Evelyn Drake and... Oh, God. I was just going to say your name backwards. I always do that. Dave Paul.
All my life. Dave Paul. It's Dave Paul.
It's Dave Paul.
I'm sure he's accustomed to it.
And his middle name is John, and so when we travel, it's Dave John Paul or Dave
John Paul. That's funny. So three first names. Oh, that makes you a spy. That's what it. You can change your name. You're totally in character. It's great. Well, how have you guys been?
No. I use camera reviewing, as an international spy, really. It's just a cover-up.
Perfect for that.
Yeah.
So, you guys look good. We watch the shows. You guys are doing better and better every single day, and you were great to begin with, so I don't know what to say. You guys are doing a great job.
Flattery. Unbelievable.
Yeah, we've been working pretty hard and just trying new things all the time, so... it's glad to see that our audience is sticking with us and everybody's having a good time.
Yeah, we definitely are getting way more comfortable on camera.
Isn't it funny how people who like to take pictures or photographers or video people don't really like always being on camera, but once you get used to it, it's, and you have to get used to just hearing yourself and saying, I don't really like how I sound. And after a while you get used to it, and then you just hope nobody cares, and it's just okay.
No, we
you guys have been doing
the wind, sort of went with it. And,
no, you guys have been doing some new and interesting stuff. Like you're interviewing more people. I love some of the latest interviews you've done with photographers. There was the gal who was, and I'm bad at names, but there was a gal who she was. Yes, yeah, that was a nice interview. That was a really good interview.
She's a great photographer, and I think it was just really nice to be able to talk to her a little bit more candidly about her work. And same thing, we just did one with another photographer, Steve Spear. Yes. And that's some of my favorite things that we had the opportunity to do.
Yeah. Now, he's the one who was friends with the owners of the camera store, correct?
Yeah.
Was he the visual? Yeah. He's a visual graphic artist type plus. Yeah. And I like what he was saying. He said, you asked him, I think, are you going to give up cameras at any one point or photo? He goes, no, I've been doing this for 50-something years, and I'll and she said the same thing. You'll have to pry it out of my dead cold hands. But those were really nice interviews, and they were you get to what makes people tick and how they feel. In particular, she was talking about how she took twice photos of people who died right then and there on her, and we're sitting going, yeah, I know. I had to do a funeral once with one of my initial co-hosts on another show we do when we first started about 10 years ago, and he died at 42, and we're just like, oh. And his wife asked me, can you do his funeral and just film it all? I can. I didn't want to film a funeral. That wasn't the bad part. Editing was tough. I think I spent like 4 hours crying while editing. It was like, oh, this is not good. That was probably the worst editing I've ever done. I mean, the editing came out okay, but the job was awful. It's like, oh, this wasn't a fun one to do. And then after it was done, nobody watched it. I was like, nobody wanted to see it again. It was too touching.
I really want to go back to that.
Yeah, not fun. No, you guys, there's one you did recently on the, I guess it's the Calgary train system, and you filmed most of it in that one underground station.
Sure.
Yeah.
I love that show. I could care less about the camera you were reviewing. I think it was a Minolta? No, Ricoh. But I just love watching the train station. I thought that was the coolest interview. The lighting was really interesting, and it was just cool. And it came out really well. I don't know what you guys were filming that with, but it looked really, really good.
Well, we're finding, like, being a tourist in your own city, we mentioned it during that video.
Yeah.
You know, often you go throughout your city and you don't really pay attention to it. So for us, that was the first time we saw a lot of those stations on our own.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And Brendan was filming on our trusty Panasonic GH5, which is still our main video production camera. We have 2 of them, and so that's what we primarily shoot with. Our audio is all synced up to it, and it's just such a great run-and-gun camera that you can do that kind of work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting shoot.
And it's funny, I wouldn't have guessed that. We have 2 of the GH5s also, and the GH5S, and I didn't think that was a GH5. I had no idea what it was. I go, that looks really good, though, because the lighting behind it was really sharp and crisp, and just everything looked good on that one. And
I blame Brendan. Brendan is making us look good.
Yes.
Yeah,
really
it was good. Now you guys always look good, but you know what's fun about that is everybody complains about GH5 focus and this and that. I've had the GH4 and the GH5. We've done a lot of videos with them. Honestly, we don't do sports, so maybe that's why we don't notice it. The focus has, for the most part, been great.
Well, and I have to admit that Brendan actually shoots all of his video with manual focus.
That helps.
And so, yeah, that helps a lot. And Panasonic does have some really good focus assist tools if you are doing that kind of work.
They do, yeah.
But he's just so used to rocking focus that the autofocus on the GH5 is a non-issue for him.
Right. That's interesting. He racks focus really clean. I didn't realize he was doing it manually. It looks great. So, and you're right. For a small camera that can do just about anything, my wife always says, "So what are you taking on the trip?" G9. And she goes, "The G9 again?" I go, "Oh yeah, I like it. I like the G9. It reminds me of my Canon cameras." So, you know, I've started with Canon. I have Canons, but I like the Panasonics better. Can go figure, right? And it's interesting. Well, so let's ask a very personal question here.
Uh-oh. If you make me blush, we're in trouble.
That's right. No, we won't. Well, it might make you blush. I don't think so. But Evelyn, what's your favorite camera? Your personal favorite camera to shoot with?
So glad you asked.
I can answer that for me.
So my camera of choice right now, which is the first camera, I think I've mentioned it in other videos, but I hadn't bought a camera in quite some time because I have easy access to cameras constantly. But I bought myself a Fujifilm X-T3. And it has been my favorite camera, and so much so that we've actually been shooting a couple reviews where I bring those cameras with me everywhere, and I'm missing my X-T3. And I told Jordan that this weekend I'm going to go back to shooting my X-T3 just for myself. And
that's
I'm really
interesting.
And
Dave, what's your favorite?
You know, that's a tough question because I'm a little bit all over the map. This year, I definitely fell in love with the Fuji GFX system, the medium format.
Yeah.
I love the look of the medium format, and the Fuji files are beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's not practical for shooting my son's U10 soccer, for instance. So, you know, there's a time and a place for it.
That's interesting. You know, it's funny. We were talking pre-show, and I said, "Why do I hate Fuji? What's wrong with me?" And I have a Fuji X-T2. I never upgraded to the 3 or any other Fuji yet. It takes gorgeous pictures. It takes good video. And I keep saying, what don't I like about it? And I think it comes down to I have a really hard time reading the screen because it's such teeny fonts. So that's irritating. And the other thing is I don't like the controls. I guess I'm not. It's kind of a rangefinder type thing, and they don't make me happy. Well, again, it probably comes down to if I'm in a dark place, I can't see the controls, and I can't read them because it's so small on the screen. So mine's just, I think, a frustration thing with accessibility on those small fonts. And
yeah, it depends on what you're doing, because once you customize the camera to your own needs, I find that I barely even have to go into the menu system because everything is sort of tuned to what I need. Yep. So I'm just more adjusting the dials and making changes that way.
So is the X-T3... I'm sorry, Dave.
It's tough if you're switching systems between a Fuji, a Sony, a Canon, an Nikon. You know, they all have a different way of doing the same thing, and so it takes a little while to really get into it and make it muscle memory. And the more you spend time with one specific camera, the more it becomes really an extension.
That is true. So Fuji has really come on over the last, let's say, 3-4 years. They've made quite an impact. I don't know how much their sales are compared to, they're not as high as obviously Canon or Sony, but they've got a market and it's growing, it seems.
Yeah.
Are
Well, and
you
I'll
seeing
tell you this, that it seems to us that Fujifilm is still captivating the market in the APS-C sensor cameras. Obviously, they're not in the full-frame world, but as far as APS-C and some of the other brands, through the camera store in our little world, we're not seeing as much demand for some of the APS-C DSLR cameras like we used to. So I think they've kind of sort of honed in on that little niche area of the market, and I think they'll keep doing that.
Yeah, they have a great little ecosystem. Everything you need is all there. Fantastic lenses, great functionality. Image quality is a little bit unique.
Well, and I guess they have, well, like you were talking about, Dave, they also have the GFX, like their medium format stuff, which, yeah, I've heard some good stuff about that for studio photography, and I guess not as commonly, of course, naturally, as their APS-C stuff, but yeah. I mean, I guess
Harold shoots with the 5DSR.
Yeah, that's my
that's his baby
camera that I have.
Yeah, so and sometimes it's not always a matter of resolution, because you don't need 50 megapixels all the time necessarily, right? But the larger sensor makes a little shallower depth of field. It gives a little different look. And so when we did the GFX-R review, it really turned me on to medium format. I'm like, wow, this is fantastic.
Yeah, Dave really likes the high resolution.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. And also the color space on Fuji is, I'd say, as good or even better than Canon.
I'd agree. I'd agree.
I mean, they're just warm. They're beautiful. The colors aren't oversaturated. It just looks beautiful. And
I think it depends on what you like. Like Fujifilm it sort of has more of that like cinematic look to it, where I think Canon has the more real life look to it in their color space.
Yeah, actually, those film looks that the Fuji has, I have to admit, I love those. They look really, really good. And they give you such a choice of what I want that to look like today. And pretty amazing how they leverage what they used to do, making film, to doing it in a digital format and keeping that same feeling. That's pretty amazing.
There's a maturity with Fuji, for sure. Mm-hmm. You have a long heritage, and it shows through.
Yeah. Now, Dave, you used to do a lot of Canon, right?
Yeah, so I've shot 5D3 for years, and prior to that, a bunch of other Canons and stuff. So it's been really interesting this year to kind of really sort of have to play with a whole bunch of other different brands. So I've definitely, this is the first generation where I've really fallen in love with mirrorless cameras. Yeah. And, I'm sold. I had an interesting experience a few months ago, is that I didn't have a demo camera to play with, something we were testing, and I had to go photograph my daughter's basketball game. So I just grabbed my tried and true 5D3 7200 combo, something I've shot with for years, and it felt archaic. It felt like I was stepping back in time. It was an odd feeling. So
EVFs are nice.
Well, the latest generation, if you look at Canon and Nikon, and especially the new Panasonics, they're beautiful electronic viewfinders.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, who just came out with who was it? They just came out with a 5.7, I think, megapixel EVF. Yeah. Which one was it?
Yeah, that's full frame Panasonic.
It's a Panasonic. Yes. I haven't seen that one yet. It just looks like it's probably amazing, because even on the 3.7 that they have on the G9 and I guess all the GH5 and 5S, it looks great. It actually looks great. So I can imagine with 2 extra megapixels what it looks like. It must be really cool.
Yeah, it's
or 2,000 more
amazing.
Megapixels.
And it's OLED, so it's just really crystal sharp, and it's a really nice viewfinder.
Yeah.
Now, are you finding, I mean, being in a camera store, are you finding that people are buying less cameras? Everybody says people are buying less. I mean, I go to Best Buy, people are buying a lot of cameras. So I go, I don't know if it's less. People do use their phones, but the phones just, no matter how good they are, they're just not quite as good.
The market is definitely shrinking, and that's something that we're seeing in Canada, and also in, I think, North America, maybe even worldwide. But things are certainly shifting. We were just taking a look, and this year we've sold about half as many DSLR cameras at the camera store as mirrorless cameras, and I mean, that's kind of shocking. Not necessarily a huge surprise because we know the shift is happening, but I guess for it to start to pick up some momentum in this next year, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I can't wait for lensless cameras to come out. It just imagines what you're seeing and takes a picture. Wouldn't that be cool?
Just your brain, a little brain piece.
Yeah, just a little brain chip.
Oh, I've used a lensless camera though. They well, you know, I guess pinholes are kind of Those are lensless, right?
That's true.
It just uses a pinhole.
Is this a hole?
You guys actually have a section on your store for those, right? Like little pinholes and like other kind of funny little cameras, right?
We had a bunch of
caps.
They're laser etched body caps.
Huh.
Right.
Pinhole, and they were like F222 or something like that. But it was very, very cool, very precision, much more precise than a hairpin.
That's interesting. Well, you know, they use that for people who have either bad sight or something to try to get them to see better with those little pinholes, and it works supposedly.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. So, what do you guys see as the trend? Obviously, everything's. I don't think it's going. I think we're pretty much at mirrorless with DSLRs kind of hanging on, going, what happened? Don't anybody want us anymore? What do you think we're going next?
Full frame is definitely the hot thing right now.
Yeah. Full
frame everything. And we're seeing more popularity in kind of the mid to high end products. So things like the A7 III, A7R3. Nikon's starting to pick up a little bit of steam. So not so much in the Z7, but the Z6.
Mm-hmm.
And even with Canon kind of out of the gates, it seemed like the RP had a little bit better performance early on, and then, but I think overall there's still more Rs out there.
Yeah.
But they're too busy crippling themselves. And Canon's such a weird company because they have the market. They still own the market in terms of sales. I think I read a statistic the other day that they are the largest camera manufacturer, period, larger than the other ones combined. So that's how big their sales are. But it's sort of interesting because they're always crippling everything. I mean, we have Canon camcorders, we've got Canon camera, we've got the R, we bought the R, we didn't get the RP, but we have one R, and it's okay. It's funny. It's kind of a love-hate with it. We like it a lot, but it's not one we take with us.
What's interesting I found with the R is that it kind of got sort of some really bad reviews when it first came out. People were really not into it. And
they were disappointed. They wanted more.
Yeah, the multifunction bar would really polarize people. But the more people use that camera, the more they spend time with it, the more they're really pleased with the results they're getting.
It takes good pictures. And the video is not actually too bad. I mean, once you get past the crop, which isn't horrible. I mean, if you get with that 10 to 18 EF lens, it works fine. Or it's an EFS lens, I think. It works fine with the crop. But I don't know. The multifunction bar is interesting. It's good sometimes. Sometimes it works well. Other times, we just have it on permanently now. We notice that if it's just on, it works better. If you have to turn it on when you stop moving, there's a good chance you'll miss every shot you want because it's still adjusting itself. It doesn't come on that fast. And notably, they got rid of it in the RP. So,
I always tell people with the multifunction bar to turn it off when you first get the camera. So don't even use it at first. Get familiar with the rest of the camera, and then incorporate that into the camera. Once
that's actually good advice.
That's not a bad way to go about
That's actually real good advice. What did you say?
I remember that with the Nikon Z6 and Z7, wasn't there a similar thing where there was a lot of sort of negative feedback and negative reviews, especially just on the initial reveal of it, and kind of things have mellowed out a bit since then, right? Since people have been getting them and using them.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think once the Z6 hit the market and people accepted it for that price point level, it was really, really well adapted, and I think people were a little surprised by how good the images coming out of that camera are, as well as the video footage. I mean, for Nikon, it was a huge step in video for them to be able to actually have something that filmmakers or people that were doing multimedia would be interested in.
Yeah, what I'm finding is that the mirrorless cameras used to sell themselves on size. right? They were smaller and lighter and easier to carry around. And now we're seeing that they're showing and flexing their muscles on the actual design. Edge sharpness on the images are significantly better with your mirrorless cameras now.
The sharpness is incredible on them, and whether it's Sony or. So how have you guys seen, or I imagine you have the Panasonic S1 and the S1R?
Yeah, we're quite familiar with that.
Yeah,
so
we're
what do you
just wrapping
think?
up our review actually, and hopefully it's going to go live this weekend.
Oh, cool.
We've had one for quite a while actually. We brought it up to the Yukon. We were at their launch event in Barcelona, and then we've had them around Calgary as well, both S1 and the S1R. So it's a very interesting move for Panasonic, and we thought kind of early on that it would be a bit of a disruptor in the market, and it hasn't quite caught on yet, but I think people are interested to see what it can do.
How do you like it from is it simple? Okay, here's a question. Is it like having a big GH5?
In some ways, there's a lot of familiar controls set up ergonomically like a GH5. It is a lot larger, and they have sort of implemented some different ergonomic features to balance it better since it is such a larger camera. I'd almost say it's more like the G9 form factor.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, but it is big. It is a big, heavy camera, and it's no holds barred. They just went for it.
That's nice.
But they've loaded it with everything you can possibly imagine. I mean, you have direct HDMI out, you have headphone jack, mic jack, a large battery.
Stabilized sensor.
Yeah, stabilized sensor. It has...
Crazy high-res modes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What is it, 170
Image
megapixel
stabilization.
camera? I mean, wow.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm oddly addicted to the high-res mode for some reason. I don't know why.
Now, can you take it just handheld? Because it's so stable. Can you do handheld, or do you still need it on a tripod?
A tripod, but you put on the tripod in high-res mode, you're getting a 187 megapixel file.
That's huge. Yep.
And there's two modes. So there's one if it's a completely static shot, so if you're doing architecture, and then the second mode will account for some movement in trees or water. So then it'll help correct some of that. But the reason why you have to put it on a tripod is because it disables the stabilization, and so because the sensor is moving in order to get all those the multi-shots.
Yeah, we're not sure if we're going to go buy one or borrow one, but we're interested. It sounds. The only thing I didn't like was the fact that they went with the Leica mount, which is sort of odd. Not quite sure. I mean, Leica lenses are great, but they're darn expensive. So that kind of limits a lot of people from getting it. I mean, a professional might get it, but even still, you're talking about $3,000 to $5,000 on some of these lenses or more.
Well, that's why we have the alliance with Sigma. Well, I should say we.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you shareholder, Dave?
And the only problem with Sigma is they're good, but again, they're heavy. They're heavy lenses, so I guess that's okay. We have a whole mess of Sigmas, and
the segment of the population, they don't care how heavy the equipment is, as long as it yields the results that they want.
True. Yeah. That is true.
And I hate to almost bring this up, but I think that there still is some perception that professional camera equipment should look impressive.
Yeah.
And
You're
so
right.
if someone brings in like a small mirrorless camera to, a commercial job, they might not sort of get the same reaction if they were to bring in like a really large system.
We went on a shoot about 4 years ago. I think this is right around maybe a little over 4 years ago when the GH4 came out. And that's the first time we took a DSLR or a mirrorless on a shoot. And it wasn't that big. And we kind of decked it out because we had a mic system on, and it went up fairly high. And it looked a little more impressive. But we got there, and the guy we were shooting was an executive at a big company. It was an interview, basically. It was a statement kind of thing that he was doing. And he's like, "That's it?" I go, "That's it." I go, "But this camera can compete with $20,000 cameras." And he's like, "Really? It's so small." "Yeah, but it shoots 4K. He goes, "What's that?" That's when 4K started coming out. I go, "Oh, 4K. Yeah, it's ultra high definition, really high definition." He goes, "I don't want that." I go, No, we're shooting you in 1080. He goes, "Oh, good." I don't want. He goes. He didn't want to be scary. He said. So.
Filter on.
Well,
yeah.
And I think we ended up using it. We ended up scaling it way down to like, I don't know, 480p or something like that.
Really, on some of the videos.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because the initial impression was, oh. And then when we started shooting with smaller camcorders, when we do corporate videos, rather than the bigger ones we used to use, people go, "You guys are professionals?" Yeah, yes, we are. Yeah, you're shooting with. Yes, we are. Trust us.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah,
like,
no, it's getting that perception of
yeah, and
know,
we're
what
paying
women-
this much for that. Yeah, but they're very good cameras, and they just have a hard time believing it. So recently we bought one of the Canon XF 705s, which is it's about $7,000 camcorder, and it looks pretty good, especially when you start putting audio on it and put things underneath it. And they went, "Oh, that's a cool camera." So immediately you get, "That's a cool camera. Wow, that's impressive." And it's funny. You're so right. Perception is 9/10 of the value of whatever you're doing for them.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
And I guess, you know, when you're doing corporate shoots like that, when you're working with people who aren't all that used to being behind a camera in the first place, then putting them more at ease actually turns out a much better video.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when people see the big ones at first and they're not used to that kind of rig, it makes them nervous. It's like, oh, I've never done this. And bring out a teleprompter. And,
That's true too,
Big
yeah.
production.
yeah. Bring out a teleprompter and they faint. It's like, oh, it's over. And we try to tell people, you don't want to use a teleprompter. I don't. Have you ever used one? No. You don't want to use the teleprompter, not on this shoot, because then they get totally stuck up. We've seen people that can talk publicly really, really well. They get on a teleprompter. My name is Joe Smith.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be a whole skill all on its own. Like, to be
sure.
able to do that naturally.
It's tough. It's tough.
Faster.
And then you have the problem. Some people need their glasses, some don't. Can you move the camera back? No, there's a wall back here. You know, it's like, can you move you back? No, there's another wall. Okay, we need to go to a different place. Guy couldn't read a camera. Couldn't read the prompter because it was too close. So,
Right.
Usually it's too far. Now this guy was too close, so he was nearsighted, so we had to go further back. And we had no room. We had to go find another place to shoot. So these are normal things, but it is sort of funny when you get in corporate videos and you're trying to get people who really aren't used to being in front of cameras to get used to that and not panic. It's half our time is spent calming them down. We talk to them first. We chat with them. We do mock interviews. A lot of times we're filming. They don't know it. So that way, sometimes we get really good takes on the fake film. And then the guy goes, I'm ready. I go, we got it. You got it?
That's nice.
Yeah, we were filming you. You were? Yeah, see, you weren't even nervous. And it works. And it works. So sometimes we'll take a fake one just so that they don't know we were filming them, because otherwise they'll get nervous on the next one.
Yeah.
Right.
Corporate
Just a
videos.
run through. Just do like a cold run through.
No, we
Yeah.
focus a lot on megapixels and equipment and stuff, but we don't talk about sort of the bedside skills, right? Sort of the like a doctor has, right? The personal skills you have as a photographer and putting your subject at ease.
And it makes a big difference. And they could care less what cameras we've got, how many megapixels, what it's doing. Those lights are bright. Why are you putting those lights on? They just go, oh, I've never been under lights before and it's hot. I go, these are LEDs. They're not hot. No, 5 years ago you would have melted. So don't worry about it. You're doing a lot better now. So, but it does take that effort of just walking them through it. Now, we had to do a video shoot in jail once. That was actually a lot of fun. I was shooting part of it. We were shooting, I think, Canon XH-A1s. They were actually crummy camcorders, but they had beautiful look to them. They looked really professional, but the video quality was poor. That was first generation HD cameras. And so we go to this jail, and in the jail, I had to go into one. There were three of us shooting, but this one was mine, and I had to go into the jail cell, and it was aluminum. There was no bed per se, just the aluminum base. So I'm about to get down. It goes, oh, watch out! Don't touch anything. What? They go, staph infections, real bad here. Oh, jeez. And so now the camera people are afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sitting there going, man, trying to get ourselves covered so nothing's being touched, because they're not kidding. They get tons of staph infections. It's like, oh, man. And we shot for 8 hours, 3 days straight in jail. That was probably one of the worst and best shoots we ever did. It was fun because the material was interesting, but the shoot was like, you had to watch everything. And then they had a little riot because we were almost a riot. We were shooting in one area, and we moved I guess they moved the prisoners out to a different area, and they got ticked off. We were taking out their break time. We didn't know that, but we could have just said, look, leave them there. We'll film that section later. But, you know, so that was actually a lot of fun. And they had no idea what we were doing other than shooting. And half the people thought we were lawyers. So
what was the project for?
It was like for jail mental health services. Because most of the inmates, a lot of them have mental problems or mental illnesses. And the first time they've ever gotten treatment in their lives are in jail. And the policemen don't know how to deal. Police are into command and control. Sit down, stand up, move it, keep your hands up. Well, that makes anybody who's got a mental illness very afraid, very scared, very defensive, possibly violent. So we're teaching them how to, and I wrote the whole training on this. It was, talking calmly, being relaxed, never raising your voice. No matter how agitated they are, you stay calm, quiet, collected. You try to avoid restraining at all costs. And if you have to restrain, like they had a policy that you had to put your hands behind your back and be cuffed. Well, that makes people very, very nervous. So they had to talk them into it. Look, I'll be right next to you. You don't have to be afraid. We're not going to hurt you. This is just a process, a procedure. I'll hold on to your arm so you feel like I'm with you. You can hold on to me if you want. And so those were all the techniques so that they felt calm, collected, they could get treatments. And most of them, in fact, we interviewed some who came out after the fact, and they were saying, if it weren't for jail, I'd be dead by now. This has been the best thing that could have happened. I've gotten treatment. I feel better. First in my life, I feel normal. And so it was touching. I mean, we were touched doing the filming. I mean, we had to control ourselves from crying doing the filming because some of it was just really, you see people at their worst and how you can slowly bring them back. So that was one. And then we did another one for the police on it. We did one on how to be a policeman in mental health services to help the inmates out. I did another one on how to be a policeman and have the right process so you don't get killed in the process of helping somebody because they get hurt sometimes. There are violent attacks when they do this. And another one was just on all the pharmacology and understanding it, when and when not to use it, maybe how not to use it, how to do different things. So it was fun. It was fun from a point of view of what we were shooting. We'd never really shot. We've never even been in jail, so it's like this is interesting. And but it was good, and it's so funny because one of the guys, happened to know one of the shooters happened to know one of the lieutenants who was on the shoot, and the lieutenant had to jive him. He goes, Johnny, it's so nice to see you on this side of the jail for a change. And the guy's like, he had to look like, is he kidding?
You should have just went with it. Like,
we should have just gone with it. Johnny, we're going to leave you here overnight. We'll see you tomorrow. So that would have been good. But that was probably the strangest shoot we've done in terms of everybody was a little... And plus, they took us to a place in Los Angeles called Twin Towers. And if you've ever played Doom, you were at Twin Towers jail. It was, oh gosh. First of all, to get in, you're going through a maze of up and down, up floors, through airlocks, through all sorts of different things. You're lost by the time you get in. You've gone through 3 airlocks, up and down and around corners. You don't even know where you started. You're about a block and a half from where you actually started with no bearing because you're underground. Then eventually you make it up to the levels where people are. It was really weird. And I asked it, any escapes? Never. I could see it. It'd be really hard to back your way out when you got 3 airlocks with people controlling them. Not easy. But it reminded me of Doom. It's like, oh, this is kind of a spooky place to be. Yeah. Not fun.
No.
But now, Evelyn, how did you wind up getting into photography?
Oh, I mean, I've been into photography since I was a kid. But I would say when I was in high school, I became more serious about it because I was one of the editors for our photojournalism program.
Yep. Uh-huh.
And so I edited everyone's photos for our newspaper, and basically that's how I got through high school, was taking photos. That's how I got involved.
That's cool.
As kind of a punky kid, and wasn't really big into, athletic things. And so it was a way for me to kind of connect with the kids and sort of keep my space and be a little bit of a fly on the wall.
That's cool.
So that's how I first got into it. And then it actually, on Sunday, it will be my 12th anniversary of being with the Camera Store.
Oh, wow.
So
congratulations.
I've worked with the company for a long time and have been very invested in the photo community and doing different things like that.
Now, how did you meet Jordan? Was it at the Camera Store? Did you guys meet elsewhere?
No.
How did you meet Jordan?
So I met Jordan working at a different camera store. So I worked for a company that used to be in Canada called Black's Photography. And at the time I worked on the photo lab side, and he came in as kind of like a video specialist. And we were both working at the same store, and he asked me to audition actually for a short film that he was working on. And I said, sure, I'm really big into theater and acting. And my mother said, oh, I think he likes you.
Uh-huh.
And oh, no, he thinks I'm very talented. And he didn't audition anyone else, I don't think. But
how funny.
He cast me in this little movie. And then we started dating.
The rest is history.
Is that great? That was a great pickup line. Can you imagine that one? Wow. That was
I know, right?
Would you like to be in my movie?
Hey, is the movie available?
We heard that the Camera Store was hiring somebody, so Jordan came down, and I've actually been sort of friends, like through proximity, with the owners of the Camera Store. And so he came down, and then Peter kept bugging me, like, when are you going to come work for me? When are you going to come work for me? So eventually he got us both in here.
That's cool. That's fun. Well, Dave, it's your turn. The truth. How did you get into photography?
Well, I'm a little bit older than Evelyn, and so I've always been visual. And I was lucky enough when I was much younger. The next door neighbor was an art teacher, and I remember he'd bring home like old reel-to-reel videotapes and video cameras set up. And we'd be in the backyard filming stuff. And then I've always taken up photography. It's always been a thing of mine. When I was much younger, I actually bought into a photo finishing lab, so I was developing photos right from early on. I've just always been into photography. And I guess it's 11 years now for me here. So
that's great.
Yeah.
At first I thought you were going to say, well, Jordan asked me to be in a movie, but no, that didn't happen.
He hasn't. I think Dave's a little hurt by that.
Yeah, there was one other audition.
That's funny. But, it's funny because a lot of people always ask, why do people do photography? What is it? And, it's a hard one to kind of quantify, but I think everybody just develops a passion for it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it's nice to capture things as they happen. It's just, I don't know. I started with film
it's a good excuse if you're someone that has any kind of, I think, social anxieties, I think it's really good for teenagers because it's a way for them to get involved, but then have almost like this barrier that allows them to be present, but maybe not. They have the camera as like a little crutch they can lean on, and they're there to take photos.
Yeah, I've always said it's a great hobby to get into because you just keep evolving and keep growing with it. You go through periods where you want to shoot people, and then you get tired of people, you start shooting landscape, and then you get tired of landscape, you start shooting like macro, right? You constantly keep evolving with it.
And it never changes. And the gear nowadays it's even different. In the old days, people kept cameras 10 years or longer. Now, literally, people are changing cameras every year, every 2 years, every 3. They want to keep up. It's a different mindset than it used to be. And I remember starting out in film and thinking, I have to be very careful with every shot I take because I don't have that much money to buy that much film. And nowadays it's like, hey, I can shoot 256 gig card, put it in there. You're there for days, weeks. It doesn't matter. You can shoot forever. And it's just so much more fun now because you can play, you can experiment without going broke like the old days. I remember when I was in high school, I'm older than probably both of you combined. But anyway, we had the thing, you had your cameras and you had your film, but you couldn't afford a lot of film because then you had to develop it and that took time, money, and now you can play with it. So you can get your skills up, I think, a lot quicker now than you could in the old days, which is...
It makes me wonder what people think of photography, because growing up for me, I always thought that photography seemed so like exotic and artistic and cool, and now I wonder if it has that same je ne sais quoi.
It does in some cases, but people have been talking about this on YouTube a lot, but people have a cell phone and go, yeah, I'm a photographer, and they pull out their cell phone and go, yep, here's my camera. And then a real photographer, and not to say that they're not real photographers, it's just that you have limits of what you can do with this. This is a Samsung Note 9. It takes okay pictures if you like totally saturated stuff. It's just, it doesn't always look good. Sometimes it looks good. Other times, that was pretty crappy. Or it's totally burned out. You can go into pro mode, and the controls are okay, but if you're out in daylight, you can't see them. I don't care how good the screen is.
I still love so much the feel of a camera and pressing a shutter.
Yep.
And no contraption that you stick on your phone is going to replace that.
No.
Like the feeling of holding a camera is so good.
I also think that I think maybe as a whole photography is a bit more accessible, but I do think there's still a separation between the fine art photographer and like people that take more sort of everyday things, like people that can take a picture of their truck and make it look really good and that sort of thing, subject oriented. People that do things that are a little more, I don't know if I would say necessarily abstract, but a bit more conceptual. I think I do think that is something that's, I don't think it's going to necessarily become more accessible in that respect that you were saying, giving it this sort of quality that's, I think it is something that people still have a little bit of, I guess you could say, reverence for.
Now, mind you,
people use their phone, and the phones are almost like a gateway drug to photography.
Yeah.
They everywhere. Love it. Right?
Yeah,
they start taking some decent photos, and they start realizing the limitations of their phone, and they realize, okay, what's the next step? Okay, I've got $1,000 budget, right? I invest in my first APS-C sensor camera, and it's so much better. But then I start looking into photography, and I start watching a photographer I really like, and he shoots full frame, or he shoots medium format, right? And I start learning more technique, and I start developing it more and more and more.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, we say this all the time, that there's more people than ever before taking pictures every single day.
Yeah.
And I think for photography and just documenting our lives, like that's so incredible. And hopefully as time progresses, photography as a whole isn't going to shrink, and maybe there will be more people that want to go beyond their phones or their devices that they're walking around with.
Now, I told a friend of mine that you guys were going to be on it. He had a question. He goes, where do they keep their photos stored? I go, that's a good question, because everybody's always... I'm on... What am I on? I'm so little on it. SmugMug. And it's okay. It's not bad. But where do you guys store your photos? All the stuff you take and things like that.
So it's redundancy is the main thing. So I've got a couple of hard drives that I keep backing stuff up to. But key photos and stuff I'll upload up to the cloud. And so it's redundancy is really what it boils down to.
Yeah, we have a special cloud device where we primarily keep redundancy of all of our video footage from the content that we work on. And then for myself, for image files, I do use the Creative Cloud through Adobe.
Oh, okay.
And then I also save more of my important photos to a Dropbox account as well, and on hard drive.
Yeah, we used to do Drive and Dropbox, and then we went off to SmugMug. I'm not sure if we're going to stay on SmugMug because we're not really selling anything. We're not trying to sell it. It was just a place to put everything. So that's kind of interesting. And so a lot of controversy nowadays. Adobe was thinking or tried or is raising the photographer suite, which I think is just Photoshop and Lightroom. I think that's all it is. And they're charging now $20 a month or $19.95 or something, $99.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that? A lot of people are angry about that. We have the full. We have about 4 or 5 licenses of the full suite, so we're kind of stuck because we have to have it. But what do you think about that?
Same with us. Like we use Lightroom, but then we also use Capture One because depending on the camera, sometimes the ability to edit raw files, is available in one or the other quicker. I tend to organize more of my photos through Lightroom, and so I'll keep my Lightroom license.
Okay.
I think it's still priced low enough for most people that it's affordable, it's reasonable enough, and you're still getting updates and you're getting cloud access.
Sure.
So I think the anger will subside.
Well, I look at it. Here's a tool. Here's a program I use every day.
Yeah.
Like this is a crucial part of my workflow every day. So
how much is Netflix? If you compare it to something like that, that keeps increasing as well.
That's true. That's true. And we started using Luminar recently. It's kind of fun. We still have Lightroom, but Luminar is, I don't know, for the photo processing, I kind of like it because I guess it feels more like an app than it does like a software. But it's a little bit different. It feels more app-like, at least on a desktop. But it's kind of nice. I don't know if you guys have played with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. It's pretty cheap too. A one-time fee of I think $60 or $40, whatever they have a special on. But it's a nice one. No, I don't do as much processing.
If anything, I'm thinking of picking up Photo Mechanic to help speed up my culling process. The larger the files are, the more it just slows down Lightroom. Drives me crazy.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's the complaint that people are saying. Because Adobe's making so much money now between the Creative Cloud and the suites and everything else, they're not as innovative. I would probably agree somewhat with that. I've known Adobe well. I've been a board member on some Adobe products, so I know how they work. But it's interesting because you're right. When you get that much money coming in, you don't have to be as innovative because it's coming in. And there's not any one company that can replace everything they do. And they know it right now. So that's their one point they have ahead on anybody. But if somebody else comes up with something that can be totally integrated, I don't know how well Adobe would do. It'd be interesting. That would remain to be seen because they haven't always been good. They're just ubiquitous. So
and I think that's it's kind of inevitable with software as a service where because they can, they'll keep cranking up the price until it gets to the point where people just absolutely won't pay more.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They're already having record profits from what I understand.
I know.
They're just killing it.
They're doing pretty well. So.
Yeah, I wonder what the threshold really is, like what people would be willing to pay for their software and for cloud access. I think between $10 to $20, that's still to me.
I think that's what they're trying to figure out. They're trying to push to see how far people will go before they start complaining.
Yeah.
And I don't know. $20 seems okay to me. I wouldn't complain that much about it. $10 is a good deal for just Photoshop and Lightroom. It's not bad. How much cloud storage you get with that?
When they first implemented it, it was looking to upgrade my Lightroom was $150 or $160 anyways to upgrade my Lightroom. Yeah. I'm like, $10 a month, latest updates and everything else. I'm fine with it.
And they do keep up for the most part on the raw files and all the different cameras, so that's not been too bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, we've kept you guys about 15 minutes longer than we should have. I just looked and went, it's getting later. We don't want to keep you all afternoon. But, hey, it's always a pleasure seeing you guys. You guys are fun. You do great work. We told you last time you were here that we love the work you do. And you know what? We've grown fonder of it. You guys do a great job. And I really like the way you guys do reviews. They're really interesting. And you also do one thing that a lot of other people don't do. You don't really put down or come up with some really initial bad comments when you haven't even played that much with it. You're pretty right on reviews that give you, I think, a fair and honest review. I'll put it that way. That's always good.
That's a huge compliment. That's kind of what we're going for.
You did it. You do it great.
It's not fair to, I think a lot of the time it's not really fair to make some conclusions, with some of these events where maybe you only have spent a couple hours with the camera, or sometimes no time at all, and people are making drastic conclusions about things.
It's based on a spec list.
Yeah, we would much rather have some good time with it, get some real world interaction before we can make those final calls and final opinions.
Yeah, so this the Panasonic S1, for instance, right? We've had it off and on for 3 months, 4 months.
Yeah.
They run the world, really.
And that gives you some good experience with it. And also, there's nothing like feeling it, feeling the camera and feeling how it feels on your hands, whether it's good or not. You know, what you love, somebody else may hate. But you guys have been really, I'd say, like I said, fair and honest. The reviews are great because you're not coloring it with all sorts of weird stuff. And then coming back a month later going, yeah, we were totally wrong. It's the best camera ever. It's like, wait a minute, you hated it a month ago.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly made some mistakes here and there, but as a whole, I don't think we've really dramatically changed our minds about anything.
No, it's kind of fun. We did a review on the face focus, so the face tracking on the R when it came out, the Canon R, and we got, I don't know, there were like 4,000 views on it or 4,500 views, and a lot of comments, and a lot of the comments were, "You didn't do it right." No, actually, we did. We did do it right. We didn't like your results. I'm sorry, can't help you there. That's what we were getting from the camera. And we found that it was really consistently inconsistent on face tracking. My only comment was, having been in software development before, come on, programmers, you could have done a better job on QA. That's all. That's all. It's okay. It sort of works, but it sort of doesn't in some cases. And so the complaints were, I was too far from the camera. I go, they didn't say you had to be 5 feet away or 2 feet away. They said you could do eye tracking. I was about 10 feet away, and sometimes 4 or 5 feet away. Yeah. But it would get confused if I switched from one eye to the other. If I did this, which it would either follow the eye or totally lose both of them. If I cover one eye, the other one would never grab. Little weird things like that. So if you have one eye, you're dead. The other thing was, what was the other thing? Oh, yeah, no pirates were allowed. Obviously, they don't believe in pirate tracking. That's gone. But on the whole,
implement patch detect, I think.
Yeah. Well, and I think Sony has really set the bar for that as far as face detection goes, tracking focus, continuous tracking, and I don't think anybody has really been able to match them yet on that type of technology.
No, they're pretty fast, and they came out of nowhere with it. It was pretty good. So, fun stuff. Well, hey, we really appreciate you guys coming on again. As always, you're always welcome. Anytime we're going to come on, we'll keep asking you. But it's fun, and you guys do a great job. One day we will go up to and visit. We'll just drop by and say hi. We'll let you know ahead of time, but we'd love to meet you guys.
Yeah, we'd love to meet you in person. That'd be great.
And we love your counterpart, and Jordan's great, and Chris are great. So we don't watch them as much now. I don't know why. I keep missing I keep getting unsubscribe from DP Review. I hate YouTube sometimes. I lost like 40 subs.
They're getting a lot of views, and I think they're doing a great job over there.
Good, because I don't see them all the time. It's like, wait, I'm unsubscribed. Oh, so I have to subscribe again, then I catch up, then I'm unsubscribed. Yeah. It's like, what are they doing?
Well, part of it is because they have other content that goes in there. It's not just Chris and Jordan's videos.
Well, no, but YouTube, I don't know if you get this, but YouTube unsubscribes a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I lost about 30 subscriptions in the last month. Just gone.
There was a big robot call that YouTube did, I think 2 months ago, and so everybody's subscriber counts had like a dip in it on this one particular day because they, I guess, got rid of a bunch of robot accounts. So
I must have gotten that.
I was related to that.
No fun. Well, anyway, again, thanks for coming on. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend and keep up the wonderful work. We'll keep watching for sure, and we will tweet you guys out to everybody and stuff. You guys, like I said.
Yeah, we appreciate the feedback, and we appreciate coming on here.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Appreciate it. Well, have a good one, guys. Thank you much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye, everyone.
We're a wrap.
All right.